Welcome! In this series of short videos, we will look at topics for the PowerBasic Windows Compiler. Today we will look, again, at using the Windows Form Designer to provide URL links from our form in a rich edit control. This was our application at the end of the last video. We've created a dialog with a number of controls on it. What we're going to do today is to add a new control, our rich edit control. The purpose today in adding this rich edit control is that we're going to use that control's functionality to enable a web URL on our dialog. There will be times in your application writing that you wish to put a URL on your application to link to a website. You can do this hiding the URL under a button or a menu. But today we're going to put this on the dialog using a rich edit control so that it appears as text, formatted in the same way that a URL would appear on a website. So let's go and have a look at how we add this rich edit control in our form designer. If we go into PowerBasic Forms, and it will bring our single dialog up. If we go to the toolbox on the right hand side, we'll see there is a control here called Rich Edit Control. If we double click on that, and we're going to move it up to the top of our screen, and we'll make it quite wide and not quite so high that it obscures everything else. Now if we double click on this and go into the styles. Now we don't want a tab stop in this one because the user is not going to be editing this control. So we'll take these three tick boxes off. It will not be multi-line. And we'll want this read-only. Take off the return, and we won't need any scrolling. So that should be everything we need. And I think we can take off Client Edge as well. Right, if we OK that. Now, if we look at the form in the test dialog, we'll see a rich edit appears here at the top, and it's not getting in the way of any of the other controls. So that's ideal. So let's save this and go back to our code. Now, if we scroll down slightly to see the list of our constants, we'll see we have a rich edit control on the list with its appropriate value. If we hit the F2 button, and go to where our function exists that will display our dialog. If we scroll down, we'll see at the bottom of all the controls is this one here, Control Add for our rich edit control. Now I'm going to take this out of the control of the Forms Designer by just cutting this out and pasting it down here in our own area. Now I'm going to make some slight changes to this. I'm going to take out this function call here, and I'm going to replace it with a name of a class which we're going to bring in very shortly from an external library. So there we have Rich Edit Control 20A. In order to do this, we're going to have to load a library. This is something that we haven't done in this application yet. This library is a Windows DLL. So we're going to load this library by using the Load Library API function. Naming our library here, in this case riched20.dll, and we're going to initialize the common controls immediately after calling that. The load library has a return function which we're populating in here. This is the handle to our library. If this value is returned to 0, it means the library for some reason has not loaded successfully. So we can track that and handle the error. So we're testing the value in that variable. If it's 0, then we cannot load the library and we will display a message box to the user. If this fails to load, then something has seriously gone wrong with your Windows. Now, as you can see, we now have a new global variable. The reason for storing this value is that when the form unloads, we want to also unload this library. So let's go and declare the global variable first of all. So here we have our global variables. So we'll add our new global variable to that list. And there it is, global hlib. So before we push any further with the code, let's also put in the event to handle when a form is destroyed. when it's unloaded and the application ends. If we go into the callback function, and we want to put a new event in here to handle WM destroy. And there it is, our form is being unloaded, therefore we're testing the value of our global variable. If it does not equal 0, then we're calling another API call, free library, giving it a single parameter which is a handle to that library. With these loaded DLLs, the way Windows works is every time you load one of these, Windows checks to see if it's in memory already. If it is in memory already, it increments the counter for that library. So if there are 5 applications all using that library, the counter would have the value of 5. Every time you unload one of these, it will decrement that counter. When the counter gets to 0, Windows knows that nothing is actually using the library, and Windows is then free to unload it from memory. So now that we've handled the loading and the unloading of the library, let's go back to our form and add a few more things in. So we have a control on screen for our rich edit control, but there's nothing in it yet. There's no text, there's no URL, and there's no handling for when we click on that URL. So there's a few pieces of code we'll need to put in here. First of all, we want to set the background color of our URL to match the form. We can do that quite easily by using the control send command. It takes a number of parameters: the handle of the dialog, the handle of the control that we wish to set the background color, the constant that tells Windows that we are setting the background color, and there is our background color. So we're setting it to be the same shade of grey as the standard for our window. So next we need to do something so that we can auto-detect the URL. So we're going to use another control send command. And this again is sending to the same control. And we're sending another constant, auto URL detect, and an additional parameter of true. This will allow the control to identify any text that's in that control that matches a standard URL format. And next we'll have another control send command to allow us to handle events on that control. So another constant being sent to the same control, in this case set event mask. And the final parameter is enm link. Now that we've prepared the ground, we can now put the text on our control. And we can do that quite easily by using the control set text command, just like you would do with a normal text control. Again, the first 2 parameters are obvious. It's the dialog handle and the handle for the rich edit control. And here we have a piece of text. To view all projects available, click on our website link. And then we have a URL to the GSF software website. And a little bit of text following that to say your phone extension 1234 for more details. So in order to make use of these constants, for example em set event mask, we'll need to declare these somewhere in our application. However, you can pull these in by using the rich edit include file. But we're going to go a little further than that today. We're going to add one of our own libraries, which in itself we'll call rich edit include. So if we go up to the top of our code and down to where our libraries are coming in, and we add in our new library, pbwindowscontrols.include. We'll have a look at that library later on in the video, but we're just going to push forward and complete our coding in here. If we attempt to run the application now, it will generate an error. This is because one of the functions within our application is conflicting with one of the functions in our library. So we'll need to take that into account. So the fun populate combo function in our library, we can comment that one out. And if we attempt to compile again, we'll see we're close but not quite there, because the populate combo function in our library has an extra parameter. Populate combo, as you'll remember from the last time, performs these 4 lines of code. It will reset the combo box and it will populate it with details in an array. What this new updated function does is it allows you to set one as pre-selected. So we'll set that as an empty len string at the moment, as we don't want to pre-select a value. So if we run the application now, it should run quite cleanly and has our details at the top of the dialog. To view all projects available, click on our website link, and the URL has been auto-detected. However, if we click on it, nothing happens, because we have not, as yet, put the event in the callback function, the event handler. So that is our next task. So once more, back to the code. If we go down to the Notify section, this is where, as you remember from previous videos, we handled the date box on the screen. So we're going to add to this Notify section to allow it to handle our rich edit control. So the first part of this is a select case statement to determine which control we're talking about. So we'll need to add on to that the rich edit control. So we now have a section of this to handle all the events on the rich edit control. Next, as we did with the date, we need to work out what kind of event we're talking about. And in this case, we're looking for an EN link event. This is the auto detection of our URL. Next, we need to put a piece of code in here to handle what happens when the user has actually clicked on that link. And this is where our new library comes in. There is a function in here that allows us to handle URLs, which will save a great deal of coding in all your applications that use this functionality. And here is the function, rich ed hyperlink handle URL, taking three parameters, our dialog handle, the lparam value from the callback function, and the handle pointing to our rich edit control. So let's try running the application now to see if this has actually handled our URLs. So there's our application, there's our URL. As you can see, the mouse pointer changes to a hand when you hover over the link. If we click on the link, it will launch our browser. It launches whatever your default browser is, and it has now displayed the GSF Software website. So what we've achieved is we've allowed our dialog to have a URL on the dialog using a rich edit control. And when a user clicks on that, it will launch automatically to that particular web page, as many times as you wish. So we can also do a little bit more using our library with what's on the text. Say, for example, we wanted to highlight this part here, the phone number the users are to phone. Can we make that a different colour? Let's exit and go back to the code. So we go back to the function which displays our dialog, and go down to where we set up the rich edit control. So after we've set all the details in the rich edit control, we're going to call another new function. And this is a set RT colour. It's to set the rich text colour on a particular section of the string held within that control. So it takes a number of parameters, again, the dialog handle, the handle of the rich edit control, and the piece of text we're actually looking for, which is in here. And the colour we want to make it is the colour red. I've set an offset in here just in case there are any carriage return line feeds held within that string. So if we declare this new variable at the beginning of our function and try running our application now. So we will now see on our rich edit control that the text phone extension 1234 is now in a bright red colour. So we can do additional ones. Say, for example, we wanted something at the end of the string to be a different colour again. We can do exactly the same thing. We can set our details word to a nice green colour. So if we run our application now, you will see that the word details is now in green. So in conclusion, what we've achieved today is we've added a new control to our form, a rich edit control. We've placed that at the top of the dialog. However, it can be placed anywhere on your dialog, and you can set it to auto-detect URLs. Having auto-detected URLs, we've also put the code in so that when you click on that URL, it will launch the web page in your default browser. Additionally, we've given you the ability to set these two pieces of text in different colours. So before we finish up, let's have a look at the library we have added. And here is our Windows control library. The very first part of this library is to load the rich edit include file. That include file is shipped with PowerBasic. And here is a function to set the colour of some of the string of our rich edit control. It's not doing anything particularly complicated. We're getting the text from the control and we're putting it into a variable. We're then working out where that actually starts, looking for the text we prompted it with, and if it does not find that, it will exit the function immediately. Otherwise, it's setting two values, a minimum and a maximum. We're then using a control send command to send a set selection value, and then we're setting the colour that we wish it to be, which we passed in as a parameter. And then to enact that, we're using another control send to set the character format to the format we've designated in here. And further down is the other function we're using in that library, the hyperlink handle URL. This is doing something fairly similar. And down here, we're detecting when the left mouse button is clicked, then we're using the shell execute to open whatever the default application is for this particular URL. In this case, it would be your default browser. Hopefully you'll find this code useful in your applications, but that's it for today. Thank you for watching.
Thank you for watching today's video. Please feel free to click on the link in the description below to discover more videos.